Now, of all the wins that Arkansas's had lately, I would think, and you briefly touched on it, Rick, as we're back, part 2 of the Arkyana Hogs podcast following the 31-14 win over LSU. I'm Jim Harris. Forgot all the introductions. Rick David, Mike Shepard. We're here in the New Orleans setting of the podcast, trying to bring it to you. Rick, we touched briefly on recruiting, but this is the kind of win. I mean, you beat Ole Miss. You're not really going head-to-head against Ole Miss for many recruits, maybe a couple in Texas, but not in Mississippi. Louisiana is our territory, really, one of the chief ones that they want to go for. Tell me now what you really break it down for us as far as what the win meant for recruiting.
I think the win was huge. First off, when you look at a hotbed that we've been able to pull players out of is Rummel High School in New Orleans. You right now you have Andre Tolliver and Dwayne Eugene, who are Rummel graduates that are playing for the Hogs right now. And then you go ahead and you look at where we have a commitment right now from Briston Guidry, who's one of the top defensive line recruits in the country. He was offered by LSU, Alabama, and many other big schools. And he's a Rummel guy. And Rummel has one of the top cornerbacks in the country this year.
Christian
Fulton. And so the Hogs are after him. I wouldn't be surprised if we were getting a visit from him. It really is going to pay off big dividends because Mike Smith has ties to New Orleans and all the coaches down there. He recruited down there for Kansas State. He was able to get some guys out of Louisiana and Kansas State. Brett Boone's done an excellent job in bringing them on staff. Mike has done an excellent job with the receivers this year. Those guys are playing fast and confident, catching balls. I mean, they really are kind of one of the reasons why our offense is so explosive right now. But back to the recruiting, I mean, it really plays well when you come in and you win against LSU with the recruits, and it's just going to continue to play that way if we continue to win. Winning this weekend is going to be important, and winning against Missouri and going to a nice bowl game. And LSU could end up taking on the chin against Ole Miss. I was up close to Ole Miss. I sat really low at the beginning of the game and was able to see Ole Miss's fronts on the offensive defensive line. Physically, they were more impressive looking than LSU by a wide margin up front. And they run that spread system. And if Chad Kelly is as hot as he was against the Razorbacks, he's going to tear up. He'll tear up LSU. But I look at recruiting and I go, things are going in the right direction. I'll be able to tell you what McTelvin the game looks like this week when Pulaski Academy plays against Hope. So recruiting, it was a big win for us, not just Louisiana, but throughout the state of Arkansas as well.
It's hard to get off that subject of LSU. Brett Bielema owns Les Miles. He's 2-1 now, right? If you were an objective observer just watching the post-game interviews or watching their nonverbal during the game, you'd have to say that Brett Bielema is on top of his game. Les is not. That serves us well as Razorback fans in our recruiting. These recruits pay attention to everything, and I think Brett Bielema is really proactive in everything he says to his team, to the media, to the fans. And you saw it the other night. He pointed that out first thing in post-game interview about the Roma recruits and how well we did this evening against the LSU team. So Rick mentioned it all. Coach Smith is doing a great job recruiting there. I think you'll see us take advantage of some weakness there moving into the recruiting season.
Well, about the only thing that could derail all this good feelings would be to overlook Mississippi State. Now, they're 7-3. They have losses to Alabama, as we know last week, 31-6. If we go by what all the national guys say, a team coming off playing Alabama shouldn't be ready to play Arkansas. That's what they would say. So, we ought to feel good about that aspect. Alabama beat them 31-6. They also lost to A&M, and they lost an early season game in Starkville to LSU by field goal. Even though LSU kind of controlled that game, it seemed like somehow or another Mississippi State kept it close enough and had a chance at the end to tie. this week, of course, Arkansas finally returns home to Fayetteville. It seems like it's been a month since they've been there. It's hard to believe it's only been 3 weeks, almost a month. And, of course, that one was a big win over Tennessee Martin, as we know. And then the one that started all this run, was the 4 overtimes against Auburn. Mississippi State, I think they've convinced everybody now. And if you weren't going to give the Coach of the Year award in the SEC to Jim McElwain, who will most likely get it since he's getting Florida into the championship game, I think you'd have to really look at Dan Mullen, because if you look at who the media looked at with the championship, probably the unanimous last place team in the West was going to be Mississippi State. And here until last week, they were still, harboring ideas of finishing first or second, given a big upset loss to Alabama. You guys have seen them up close as well. They've been the games with Arkansas have been tough. Now last year was 17-10 when they were ranked number 1, and of course the year before was an overtime loss here in Little Rock when Arkansas had the game basically going in for the winning score and fumbled inside the 10. So again, it doesn't seem like a game that you can say Arkansas is going to run away with necessarily, but it's also a game that you don't feel like they're an underdog either, or that I don't think they played anybody. There was, we didn't feel like they were big underdogs. Maybe Vegas did, but anyway, coming into this game, having won these 2 road games, what do you guys as players see the mentality of the Razorbacks going into now a return home? Is there a letdown ahead? What do you see?
I don't think Bielema was going to allow that to happen. And he basically said this past week, their heads are getting a little big, and he's going to bring them down to earth, is what he's going to do. And he goes, yeah, but that's natural with anybody between the ages of 18 and 22, really. But I think when they get into the film room and they start doing their work, that's one thing that Bielema has done an excellent job of getting his guys prepared. His X's and O's have all year long have been impressive. Obviously some things weren't going right early on, and now they're going in the right direction. That goes to show he can adapt, unlike Les Miles, who just doesn't adapt it at all. Proves the point that Bielema is so much of a better coach than Les Miles. But when looking at Mississippi State, you look at their record and go, oh, wow, they've done an excellent job. They've got a winning record. They're doing well. But, they won over USM. They won over Northwestern State. They did beat Auburn when Auburn wasn't all that good. They beat Troy. That's big. Louisiana Tech, another big one. And then they skunked a very bad Kentucky team. And then they beat Missouri. They controlled Missouri pretty well.
Yeah, that was a very impressive win.
Those are impressive wins, aren't
they?
So when you really look at the level of competition, and you look at Arkansas winning on the road at Ole Miss, winning on the road at Tennessee, winning on the road at LSU, playing Alabama tough, you really have to start to go, as players, they start going, wait, who did they play again? Wait, who's the opponent we're watching Mississippi State play again right now? So that's where all this hype machine kind of goes into it. It was the 2:30 game on CBS with Alabama. Don't think that the schedule played in Mississippi State's favor to get to where they are. And the players know that. They're riding high. I don't think their heads are going to get big. I think these guys are on a mission. Mike?
Mm-hmm. You couldn't line that out any better, Rick. You look at their schedule, you look at where they've been this year, and then you turn and look at Arkansas. Let's talk about coaching. Ole Miss game, we had a little bit of a tackling issue, right? We missed some sacks.
How did they get that corrected in 1 week? We need to, at least, as a defensive guy,
so Rick mentioned one word, and our coaching staff does it better than anyone that I've observed, and that's adapt. Each week, they take what they need to do, and they apply it that week. Last week, they did the tackle circuit in practice, which they haven't had in a while. They worked on the tackle circuit. How was our tackling this week? All right, so, you could say that's...
against the best running back in the country.
Against the best running back in the country, right? Yeah. So the performance was there. They adapt to their opponent. So I have confidence as a fan and as a player in what our coaches do with these guys. They develop them to a high degree, even during the season. So take some confidence there, fans. Also, think about since Bielema's been here and his staff, What's the worst loss we had as far as difference in score? If you had to point to one, would it be Georgia last year where we got down so bad?
The last 2 years, yeah.
You know, this team and this coaching staff, they're steady Eddie in every game. They know what they do well. They adapt to their opponent, and they're not going to fail when it comes to performance. So coming into Mississippi State, looking at where they've been and where we've been and where we're headed on that mission Rick was talking about, it's going to be a great weekend. I think Saturday is going to be a great game. It could be close, but I have strong confidence in the Hogs.
They will probably the kind of team they're going to get this weekend won't be an Ole Miss type of team. I mean, they've got some great receivers, although De'Runnya Wilson's status for this particular game might still be up in the air. He'll be back in play, but he left the game with an ankle injury against Alabama. But they do have Dak Prescott one more time. I mean, the guy's playing like an MVP himself. Like he's having a year in his own way, like Brandon is. How do you stop a guy that does it all like he does? I know they don't have really another running threat but him. So you're really looking at their passing game, his individual play, and they were still able to run up, 400 or near 400 yards against Alabama. You know, I mean, they did threaten to score twice and failed down. You know, they went for fourth downs that backfired on them. I mean, so they can move the football. How does Arkansas's defense stop this team?
You've got to continue to do the number one thing you always have to do, regardless of who you're playing, and that's stop the run. If you're able to stop the run, you're always going to put a team in position to be successful on defense. That's what needs to happen. And I think that will continue to be a strength of this team, which is shutting down the run. Our defense has given up a lot on the pass, but it definitely plays into their strength. They need to just tackle better, and when they arrive at Prescott, they got to get him down. I mean, I don't think he's as elusive as Chad Kelly. You know, we had 6 sacks against Chad Kelly. If we make them happen, we just couldn't finish those plays off. The guy was magic that day. And I think our guys gained a lot of confidence because the guy who could run pretty darn decent in Harris. I think our defensive line is going to be able to collapse that pocket, have a better understanding as to where they're really trying to force the ball to go when they do get pressure, and that's something Rob Smith talked about. You know, you push the pocket in certain directions, and the guys that you're pushing the ball to, they need to be prepared to make a play. And that was something that really kind of happened this past week. Linebacker play continues to improve. Dre Greenlaw's a freshman, but he's starting to play like a sophomore, and that's what you want to see. His play is definitely improved. He's getting to the ball a whole lot faster. In the secondary, it's really been nice to watch Kevin Richardson out there. He plays hard. He plays tough. He plays like a kid from the state of Arkansas that loves being a Razorback. And he's one of those kids that may not have been a highly recruited kid and walks on, but guess what? He's got the ability to play in the SEC, and he actually put a big old pop on Malachi Dupree towards the end of the game. He's playing with a lot of confidence as the secondary. So I think that's what they need to do, just continue to play the game that they've been playing, but just execute it with a whole lot better precision in regards to the fundamentals. Mike?
That's right. You know, they're not going to stop doing what they did against LSU and what they did against prior teams. Our defensive line they're on a roll. They have confidence, and honestly, they're physical specimens. They're fast. They have good leverage, good reach. You know, and another factor, Rick lined it out there on the defense. Another factor is if our offense is able to move the ball as they've been doing, that's your best defense that you can have against a team like these guys. Keep them off the field. Have those extended drives. And when you get on defense, win your first down. Win first down. Put those guys in a bad position. Have the 3rd and 7s instead of the 3rd and 2s. And, you know, on our offense against LSU, one thing that wasn't mentioned, our 3rd downs were 3rd and short typically. We were at the 3rd and 2 mark, and that's success for
a lot of times. Our 2nd downs there. They have been lately. Yeah. We've been getting a lot of 2nd and 3s. Yeah.
So that's success for an offense that you can get in that position. So let's keep Mississippi State off balance. What do they do well? That's Dak Prescott, right? That's what they do well.
Yeah.
Let's try to take him away. And Rick mentioned the collapse in the pocket in the right way. Being gap disciplined and knowing where you're wanting Dak Prescott to step that's going to help us out. I think that's going to be the key. I think we're going to continue to bug him and force him to be uncomfortable.
Well, of course, Brandon Allen will have to make plays as he's done all year. Their defense has been fairly salty. They got Manny Diaz back. He was run out of Texas, but apparently he and Dan Mullen mesh well, and he does a lot better with the kind of players that Dan's got for his defense down there. It ought to be a great game. I'm heading up finally for a Fayetteville game. Hope you guys are going to be there as well.
We'll be
there Friday night.
Also, my recruiting note for you, Rick, and for Mike is that I saw T.J. Hammonds from Pulaski Robinson last weekend. He is the real deal. He's a special athlete that Arkansas has produced. Great feet, great speed, glides when he changes direction. Made 6 guys tackle and miss him the other night. I mean, I'd heard somebody told me, well, he doesn't like contact. I saw the guy shuck 6 tacklers on one play. But most of the time, like anybody else, he's not trying to run to a tackler. He's trying to run to an open space, and that's what he does great. He'll be a good addition, too. So I just feel so upbeat about the Razorbacks right now. I know you guys do, too. That's going to be the wrap-up for the Arkyana Hogs podcast, week number 11.
You want to score?
Let's do a prediction. I'm going to give you mine first. 24-17. Doesn't that sound old? I pick that every week. I'm going to stick with it again. 24-17 Hogs.
I picked against the Hogs over the last 2 weeks, and it's worked out well. I wanted to continue to go that way. So just for maintaining some level of consistency, I'll pick Mississippi State 27, Arkansas 21. I'm just doing that just to say that right now, so that means on the podcast. I do believe the score will be 38-27. The Hogs. I think the Hogs are going to settle for some field goals, as well as Mississippi State will too. They'll probably, I think, have 2 because they can move the ball on, but they need to get 2 touchdowns. So that's what I think.
And Mike, you got one?
I'm going to throw a little retro in there. The only time I've been to Starkville, we lost. I think it was 21-19 on the last 4th and 9.
22-21.
22-21. That's the score.
Yeah.
The Hogs will win 22-21 in Fayetteville on their return back to home.
Wow. Tight one.
I think we're going to score more points. That's with the 2 offenses.
I'll tell you, there's 2 things that have happened. Dan Enos, who, everybody was. I was trying to say what a great game he was calling against Auburn. I remember getting blistered on my tweets about it. If you think that's good play calling, you're crazy. I think he's doing an outstanding job. Also, the other thing to note is how many guys on Twitter and all this stuff after that Texas Tech game were going, we may go 0-8 in the conference, and instead they're going to go 6-2 and finish a second to Alabama after it's all said and done.
It's great coaching.
Yeah, and the best finish we've seen since 2006. So I guess. There was one of those Petrino years.
2010.
2 years in a row, I guess.
Yeah.
2010, 2011, Petrino went 6-2. So, it's kind of like you have a 7-1 in 2006, and then 6-2 is pretty much a watermark.
Absolutely.
For Houston, for the most part, and Petrino, and now in his 3rd year, taking over for what he had in a league that's tougher than it's probably been since the mid to late 90s or the mid 90s with Florida and some of those teams. Can't say enough about what this coaching staff has been able to do.
So does that Texas A&M loss seem like it was 6 years ago?
Well,
or and it's painful to remember.
Yeah, it's painful to remember. It really sticks in your craw. It's like, could they have, of course, they've won 2 overtime games. You kind of figured you run 50-50 on those.
You can't end the show on that. No,
it's just it's forgotten. It's a forgotten thing.
LSU, we just played LSU. We just beat LSU's brains out.
And you loved every second of it, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thanks again for joining me. I hope you fans out there love the podcast and love hearing from these former Hogs.
Sounds like a restaurant.
For Mike and for Rick, it's Jim Harris saying so long. We'll be back with you next week to talk about Mississippi State and the season finale against Missouri. So long, everybody. And thank you to Rebirth Brass Band. The Hogs kind of had their own Rebirth.
Absolutely.
Way back.
Very fitting to play that.
So anyway, what's the saying down there?
Laissez le bâton rouler.
There you go. What is it again?
Laissez le bâton rouler. Let the good times roll,
Let
baby.
the good times roll. See you.